Dan, how the hell are you?
I am doing great.
how
Yeah.
the hell are you doing up there in Wisconsin, Dan?
Oh, we had one hail of a storm, let me tell you.
Did
It was
you?
wild. Yeah.
Damaging, huh?
Yes, very damaging.
I would imagine standing under your roof over your splitter would be like living inside of a snare drum.
Oh, it would have been a disaster. If I would have been in the woodyard, yeah, I I may not be here. I'd either be crazy from the sound or I would have tried to run to the house and got nailed with a baseball-sized piece of ice.
Oh my gosh. That's terrible. Yeah, so you did sustain damage though, right?
Yes, there was damage to the siding, the gutters, and the roof.
Huh.
Very
It's
bad.
amazing.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna need a new. I'm gonna need to replace the roof and probably the siding, one side of the house. Um, it was interesting because I was concerned that I would have to like go online and research and find roofing companies and contractors, but miraculously on the next day, right away in the morning, they just all started showing up at my door.
Oh wow.
All like from as far away as like Minnesota, Dakotas, Iowa. I guess they have like some app on their phones where they can it's reported where hail damage is, and they just kind of like follow the storms around the
Huh.
country.
They're the guys that have magnetic signs on their doors of their trucks.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a friend in tree service, and they joke about companies that have their logos, their magnetic signs on the doors of their trucks. He said after they get done smashing someone's house, they peel the sign off their door and they drive away.
Yep. Go right on down the road. Never
Uh-huh.
look back. Yeah, so it was fun. It was a fun time dealing with Mother Nature. But I have a
Oh
question for
boy.
you, Joe.
Yes.
Do you like country music?
Uh some, but not all.
What about classic country music?
Oh yeah, like Waylon Jennings and yeah.
Johnny Cash?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Willie
Yeah, so
Nelson. What's not to like?
I was listening to a classic country radio station the other day, and the song by Johnny Cash that came on was "How High Is the Water, Mama?" And I thought of you. I thought of
Oh
you
wow.
and what you had went through a few weeks back.
And I'm still going through.
Yeah,
Yeah, lasting effects.
and I don't know if you want to relive that whole experience or not, but I thought it would be something maybe to just chat about here briefly.
Yeah, I'm willing. I think that there are a number of business implications, and I think also the entire event I think gives a lot of insight into my firewood operation, how I do things, the firewood industry as a whole, and the way that others look at firewood. I try to do my video with it, but I got so much on my mind. It's hard for me to keep it straight, and I've wound up deleting almost everything that I've recorded.
Well,
Maybe it
and
is better if we talk about it on the podcast.
yeah, and just maybe for those that may or may not have known or heard about it, I sustained a weather event, but I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before you had a weather event hit down in
It
your
was
neck of
the
the
yeah,
woods.
it was the Saturday before. It was Saturday, April 26th, I think. And we had I live in the upper right-hand corner of Ohio, right on the banks of Mosquito Lake, a little town called Cortland, and we had a major rain event. We had an entire day of just wall-to-wall monsoon style rain. And then between midnight and 4 a.m., we got 4 inches.
Wow.
And yeah, my yard is right on the banks of Walnut. We call it Walnut Run. On the map, it's called Walnut Creek, and it flows into Mosquito Lake. And my landlord and my cousin both live in this area. And they said that over the last 30-ish years that they've been there, the creek has risen over the years, but it's never done this. And to me, it wasn't just the creek rose. It was a flash flood, man, because there was some force behind that water that came through. Because my yard has a gentle slope uphill, and it pushed everything way up against that far wall. And it just tore up all my inventory. And what it didn't tear up, it coated in mud 1/3 of it.
I will say, when I saw the footage that you showed both on the live stream that you did and the video, seeing some of those pallets, and I've been down to your wood yard, so I know the distance they traveled from
Yeah.
the water. And like you said, I think it had to have been just like a wall of water that came pushing through and lifted that stuff up and carried it a long distance.
Yeah. The front gates were chained shut, and that chain was as stretched as thin as it could get, and it didn't break. But had it did break, I think all my wood would be floating out Mosquito Lake right now. It did hold it back, but some did get underneath it because the neighbor, that's a gigantic hayfield in the back, they brought some of my pallets and some of my wood as like about a half a mile away.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. It floated all the way down through there. What a
Jeez.
mess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What a mess. Here is the deal. Okay. Um, I think we can explain a lot of this through the comments that I got, because I went live with it right when I walked into the middle of it. I called my wife. I texted our family chat asking for help. And I thought, I got to go live, because I was thinking I'm not going to be doing a video here for a while. Might as well put this on here live. So people did see my initial reactions of you do experience despair and like you're overwhelmed. What the heck am I going to do? But then, a couple people show up, we put together a plan, and we just start getting busy. And we did have it cleaned up by the end of the day, but cleaned up is in parentheses because Dan, my firewood yard is different. I am a different kind of a firewood delivery service. Value added firewood is different than normal firewood. And you see that in a lot of the comments that came through during the live stream. And then the next day, I posted a recap of everything, where a lot of people were saying, what's the big deal? Just pick it up,
Yeah.
but that is it, that is the opposite of reality. Other people was like, well, big deal. It's only firewood. Who cares? And I was like, well, guess what? It may be just firewood to you, but this is my livelihood. This is how I make a living. And my yard is set up, and we manage our inventory. We spend a lot of time with the firewood because it gives us our biggest bang for the buck. And all of our wood is separated by moisture content. It's separated by species. And then on top of everything else, it's awesome wood. It's all consistent length and split. There's no mud, no mushrooms, no moss, no infestation. And we command a very high price for our wood. Well, the flood just put it all into a big washing machine, a big jumbled whirlpool. And now I'm left with, even though everything's stacked again, my dry is mixed in with the green. My beech is mixed in with the cherry, and
No.
the cherry's mixed in with this. All my hickory is gone. And it's really, really set me back. Not only have I lost inventory, but now I'm losing sales because people still call me, hey, can I have a quarter quart of hickory? And that's, there's a $250 sale down the toilet because I
Yeah.
don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it.
Literally washed down the drain.
Yeah. Wow. What a mess.
So you're saying that wood coated with a fine layer of silt and water, mud residue does not add value to the firewood?
No,
No.
it doesn't.
No.
No. And I'm going to try and show this. So the one row, and that's during the live stream, I was like, oh, thank God. the row that I was pulling from for the restaurant was intact. But what I didn't know at the time until everything dried out was about 1/3 of the way up, it's all, it's all, so like this mud, it's this real fine river silt and it's just caked on right now and it's not going to come off.
Yeah.
Number one. Number
Yep.
two, ironically, number two are, I mean, this is Ohio, there's a lot of septic tanks out through here. And so you have the effluent that gets into the creeks that got flooded up into my yard. All my
Ugh.
gravel's gone and we're left with this coating of silt and all the pesticides from the farmer's field. This is a big farming area out through here. So to sell it as value added firewood, the answer is absolutely not. There's no way I could sell this to anyone,
Yeah. No go.
No,
Not for
no.
what? Not for how your typical advertised firewood that you normally sell. This would not pass
Oh God,
the
no.
grade. Yep.
No. So then I get a lot of calls and emails and they're like, "Hey, I'll buy that stuff off of you." I was like, "Well, I'm sure you would, but guess what?" So I get back to when I first got into firewood. I was heating our house with wood and you have a lot of wood. You always think, I wonder if I could sell this and how much could I get? And I always concluded that the wood is worth more to me as firewood than it is cash because of how cheap people sell firewood. I don't know how it is up where you are, but around here, you can get a cord of firewood and they'll probably even stack it for you for like $200. Holy cow. And to me, it's worth more to me as firewood. That is how much, because, I don't sell cheap firewood, but that's because I buy cheap firewood. I
Right.
still buy firewood for my business because I can't keep up. So I buy firewood. And so people want to I was like, God, why would you want this stuff? It's gross. And two, no, I don't sell cheap firewood. It's just not my business model. I don't know. Does like Nordstrom's have a scratch and dent sale? Or
No.
does
Yeah.
Maserati
Nope.
sell hail damaged Gran Turismos? I mean, it may sound humorous to you, but I'm serious. That's the regards that I
Right.
hold my brand and the firewood industry. Firewood is not some Mickey Mouse commodity that you just leave in a pile because if you touch it, you lose money. Gosh,
Yeah.
you spend time, you invest in your product, and you get paid back, and that's what my yard is. And it kind of got jumbled,
A little bit.
mud covered jumble.
Now, I believe when I tuned in and when I think I saw on the comments of the live stream, there was mention of the fact of having your wood stacked compared to just in a big pile. If it was in a big pile, you would have been better off. But I immediately thought of, if you look at a cone shape, the mass of the volumes at the bottom. So you would have had more wood ruined if it had been in a
Yeah.
pile.
Yeah. So the answer to that is, totally what you said. And one doesn't lead to the other here. But the irony would be if I were the type of person that would just leave my wood in a pile, I probably wouldn't care that it was covered in mud. You
Right.
see, because I'm
Yeah.
selling it cheap. But the reason people sell it cheap is because they don't spend any time with their wood. They've tricked themselves into thinking that you can't touch it. I did a video called Radioactive Firewood. I mean, just once, why is it, Dan? You have this tree and you cut the tree down and then you limb it and then you bucket and then you carry all the rounds to the street and put them in your truck. And then you drive the truck home and then you dump all the rounds onto the ground. And then you get your log splitter out and then you split it. And man, once you split it though, if you touch it, you lose money.
Yep. That's where it all changes after it's
Oh
split.
gosh. Yeah. So I am a firm believer, make money the way you want to make money. The reason I get fired up about this is because you have to defend the industry here. And I've put a lot of thought into this. I cannot name another commodity in this world where the dominant voice within their industry is saying, don't touch it or you'll lose money. And I
Hmm.
don't think it's sand or gravel or electricity or notebook paper or oil or beef or nothing. You don't hear that anywhere except in firewood. And that is just a shame because there are so many people out there that are leaving way, 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 way too much money on the table because they've tricked themselves. They've listened to these dominant voices that are saying, the minimal. I had a guy that came to my wood yard at our trade show last year, and my one friend came up and was laughing to me about it because he was hearing a guy talk out loud saying that, he doesn't know how I make money because he does firewood exactly 100% correct. He doesn't even touch it at all, and he still can't make money. And I would have told him, well, I think you're doing it exactly 100% incorrect. Because if you would spend more time with it and refine it, it would be worth more and you could sell it for more. And it's worth your every bit of your effort. And these comments that I was getting, about the leaving it in piles. So the answer to that is no, because had I taken that lazy route and left my wood in piles, like you said, it's shaped like a pyramid. It's not an upside down pyramid, and the majority of the wood's at the bottom, and it would have been covered in river silt, and it would stink, and it would sit in there, and it would cook, and it would smell, and then
And
you'd sell it
mold.
for and then you sell it for peanuts in the fall. So that would have been a disaster. And I'm if I were the type that was leaving wood in piles, I wouldn't be where I am right now anyway. So it's just a total moot point. But thinking that this was just the next a groundbreaking time for me to change my ways is just ridiculous. There's just no
Yep.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
just no way.
you were a hobbyist, then the story might be different. But you're not, and yeah, and so now what? What have you? I know you have kind of mentioned something about like on your live stream you couldn't you talked to your insurance, they won't insure your inventory. There's nothing you
Ugh.
can really do.
Well, that I think if you're hearing some agitation in my voice, and it's because of that insurance. So I had this discussion before with my insurance guy about insuring my yard because when I'm looking when I look at my yard the day before the flood, if I average what I normally average per cord, I was looking at roughly at retail, I'm pushing $48,000 in inventory in my yard. So, and you're telling me I can't insure it. So I told him I need to insure this. And he says he called around, no one will insure it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. If I was selling ham sandwiches or socks or or
Anything.
lamp posts, yeah, I could insure it. So why is firewood any different? And that's where the frustration is then, where only in firewood do we have this voice where the people that even make the firewood can't say anything good about it. They have this obscene view of it, and it is so low that they actually think that if you touch it you lose even more money. you know and does that spill into the insurance market, where people hear this attitude about firewood is like, well, why even insure it? This is my livelihood. And that's a lot of money.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not like a super duper hobbyist that has money to burn. I sell firewood for a living and I cannot insure it. And it makes me question, am I in the right industry going forward? Because if my yard flooded once, therefore it can flood again. Um, I think still, believe it or not, the risk is kind of low. I think it was a 100-year event that happened. But it can definitely happen again. But people flood it out before and they don't move and they stay put. I think there's a couple things we can do. When me and the landlord talked about fixing that wall to help the water, if it does fill up again, for the water to get out a little quicker with the wall, and maybe even adding an extra row of pallets to that lower end. Just even if you got the wood up another 6 inches, you could probably save yourself some thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But as we're standing right now with what is covered in wood, and you can see where we've delivered to the restaurants, we loaded the wood into the trailer all the way down to the mud line, and then that stuff has stayed there. That's a lot of wood, man. I've lost 1/3 of my inventory. And
Whew.
that's like the stuff covered in mud. And like right now, what I can't sell is most of the stuff left behind because the dry's mixed in with the green. And I cannot take that to a restaurant because they're very fussy. That wood's got to burn, man.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's so
it's
there's
really
not
put
even
me
any
behind.
there's not even then any I mean cuz I mean flood is one thing, but you could also lose your inventory to like theft or
Sure.
fire. I mean,
Yes. Yeah, it's a risk management thing. You think about what bad could happen and what kind of an impact would it have. So floods are really bad, but fire'd be worse.
yeah.
The Martians taking everything, the infestation or whatever. There's
Yeah.
all different ways that you can have experience a loss, and that's a risk, man. So now I'm thinking, I put all of this effort into it, and I can't insure it. And do I want to roll the dice like that? So there's other ways that I can mitigate. So the one thing that I've started doing right away is where I've gotten away from keeping wood at my house, I've resumed that. I think for a lot of reasons, it makes a lot of sense to keep wood here, to keep, wood at different locations. Had I kept all that wood at my place here before, I would be in a much better spot with the restaurants because I'd still have my dry wood that I can take.
Yeah. But then
Yeah.
that also adds to the effort you have to put into that, right? I mean, you have to truck it home, store it
Yeah.
there.
Well, I still have my supplier up north. And what I had done in the past was I would buy it off of him and just bring it back to the house, which in a way is even closer than taking it to the yard. But it was just nice in the yard because it's hard pack. It didn't matter the weather. Here, if the ground's soft, I can't do it. If we get a
Yeah.
wet October, I get sealed off from a lot of it. But I'm going
Hmm.
to have to go back to that because I can't. If I am in an industry with a commodity that's my livelihood, that I have shown how you can add value to it and quadruple its price from when it was first split. And I cannot insure it. I need to take steps to mitigate my risk.
I wonder if like larger, up here in Wisconsin, there's a firewood supplier that trucks wood down to Chicago like every day, semi loads. I wonder if
Yeah,
those type of companies must just have like a insurance policy that covers like everything on their property, or I wonder, if this is just
yeah.
how that would be handled on a
I
larger scale.
I spoke to a very large firewood provider at the expo, and I asked him, and he was standing there looking at me. He goes, I think mine's insured. I says, really? I says, how? He goes, I don't know. He goes, let me think on this. And he had to sit there and think. He goes, that if his insurance policy is like all of his machines and his buildings and his inventory.
Hmm.
And I said, well, that's interesting. But he also does like lumber too.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I was like, well, that's interesting because my insurance guy, I'm friends with the guy, so I believe him. He talked with multiple underwriters and they were like, no, can't insure it.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I'm banking my livelihood on a commodity, on a value added commodity that I cannot insure when it's in inventory. It makes
No-
me wish I sold t-shirts or, chessboards or something because I could
yeah.
insure that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
That's real. That really has me down. Serious.
yeah. Well, I
You
can
know.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because like you said, I mean, it happens. If it happened now, it could happen again, and or
Yeah.
it could, something worse could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And there could definitely something worse happen. So that is what I must manage going forward. And uh, yeah, I'm serious. It's made me reconsider what in the heck I'm actually doing here. It has.
Hmm.
And then, I've always, and I, so, okay. So when I first started doing this, I was a firewood delivery service. Well, then I became a YouTube channel. And then YouTube was bigger than firewood. And then firewood and my YouTube channel were kind of on the same upward trajectory. But now my firewood business is just pulled away from YouTube. So I consider I am a firewood delivery service first. And it's my livelihood. That's how I make a living. And that's where some of these comments that I got where I think it demonstrates, one of the dynamics of firewood, because a lot of people were very confused as to why I was so upset about this crisis, because they were saying it's just firewood, but that's because whatever firewood means to them ain't at the same level that it means to me and means to my customers and means to how I make a living. And I heard on a number of comments, and I was like, well, bud, guess what, we just see things differently here. It was almost like, you remember a while back where you were threatened to be sued because um, this guy, he was upset that you were selling firewood for a profit and he does it for charity.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. So, well, firewood to him is something that you do for others. And, my position is, well, good for you. But for me, it's my livelihood. If I were to ask that guy, what do you do for a living? And he's like an auto mechanic or something, I'd say, well, guess what? I fix cars for the elderly for free, you know?
Yeah.
Therefore,
There.
therefore I'm going to, so the same thing goes. Well, it's like the same thing with the way people see the firewood, where a lot of people just make it for themselves and they could care less about the quality because it's going into a boiler. And the firewood industry to them is that.
Yep. It's
Or they're a firewood service and they leave it in piles, and that is all that they see as firewood, and they've for and they believe that you can't touch it or you'll lose money. So they just don't understand why I put all this time and effort into what we do, you know. And that a lot of these comments and stuff, I found myself doing way too many replies to people like this. I would think that the people that have been around for a while understand how I make firewood and how we sell it and how it's different. And I think maybe a lot of these people just stumbled upon the channel because of the the thumbnail and the title. Maybe, I don't know.
yeah. I do think though a majority of people who sell firewood, I would be willing to bet that there's not a high percentage that do that solely as their main source of income. And that's where I think people sometimes don't appreciate the dynamics of what's going on. Like they do firewood, they sell firewood, but it's on the side. It's not their main, you know,
Yeah, I agree.
revenue generating
But
source.
that was, when I was saying that I heat my house with wood, and I didn't realize how much wood my outdoor boiler was going to need to get through the winter. And I just found myself cutting wood all the time. And I had this gigantic stash of firewood in and around my woodshed. My woodshed we built was way too small, had to be 10 times bigger to keep all of the wood that we needed under a roof. And so you're thinking, could I sell this firewood? And could I make money? And instead of heating with wood, I could just buy propane with it. And it's just some quick math for what people are selling firewood for around here. The answer is no. It's worth more to me as firewood than it would be for me to sell it. And if I were to ever make a living out of firewood, though, I couldn't sell it like that. And,
Yeah.
which is the way everyone seems to do it. And that's where I figured out that I recognized that firewood's a commodity and you can add value to it and you can increase its value. You can sell it for more than selling it at a commodity level. So that's what I do. But some people just can't accept it or just don't see it. They're trapped in their ways of, well, I mean, what the heck? We got people out there saying you can't touch firewood, you're going to lose money. For crying out loud. If you if you went to science class in high school, you learn that if you have a hypothesis and if you find one counter example of it, your hypothesis is junk, you know? Like what goes up must come down, gravity, you know. And then, well, if you throw a ball up in the air one day and it doesn't come down, you just disproven gravity. So it doesn't, you can't say that anymore. And,
Uh-oh.
you know, so here in firewood, when you say, if you touch firewood, you lose money, but here's a guy out here in Northeast Ohio that's doing it and he's selling it for more money, your hypothesis is junk.
Yep.
Just like 1/3 of my inventory is.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was worried for a second there we were going to go into some type of flat Earth comparison. I don't know where you were going with that. Gravity.
Well, I mean, there's your example. You know, there's your example.
we better wrap this episode up before we go down that rabbit hole.
I got a picture taken by a spaceship out by Mars that shows how Earth is round.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yep. So how high is the water?
Yeah, the bottom line though, Dan, is this really stinks for me. It has really set me back, but it hasn't put me out of business, and it hasn't sapped me of my will to go on.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, but it's no fun. I'm serious. I've lost sales. I've lost inventory. And I don't even know how to account for it right now. Like, I need to call my accountant and see. You know, so like people, you know, they want to buy this wood. I was like, no, I don't sell cheap firewood, number one. And number two, you know, you don't want this wood, man. And some people still want it, but there's no way I'd ever sell it that cheap. Good heavens.
I got to say, the 5 words I think I've heard the most in a while have been, Dan, I am under stress.
Yeah. But talk about timing though, you know, leading into the expo week and stuff. And I'm dealing with getting orders out and mud, and I couldn't even get my gates open there. It had washed out the blocks underneath, and the landlord had to come by and reset everything.
It was all like just the perfect storm, pun intended. It's all
hail yeah, it was.
Hail yeah. Oh, hail yeah.
Hail damaged firewood.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I hope I didn't bring back any, you know, memories that you didn't want to relive, but I thought it was worth talking about because it's an interesting topic, you know.
Yeah, I think it is. The lost sales really aren't bothering me. The lost inventory isn't bothering me, but the insurance thing, it just agitates the heck out of me. A, because I can't get my livelihood insured, but B, this prevailing attitude within our industry, which probably contributes to it.
Yep.
You know?
Oh, hail yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Nope.
No.
It's
not just firewood, Dan. It is not just firewood. Good heavens.
Hey, I've been preaching that for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially small, mini firewood is not just firewood.
I'm changing my business to Ohio ham sandwiches.
Ooh, well, I think with that, let's see. I gotta go. I think I'm meeting either a contractor or my adjuster at some point here. So I gotta get ready for that.
Ugh, insurance.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out that your claim isn't covered because the hailstorm happened on a Tuesday between 10 and 11:30 a.m.
I was just going to say, you can't get insurance and I have to go deal with insurance. So I don't know who's in the worst position.
Gosh. Insurance.
Ooh.
Ohio ham sandwiches and insurance sales.
All right. Well, I think, should we strike it up?
You want to strike up the band?
Strike up the band.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of the #1 firewood podcast in the world, the Wood Hounds, every Wednesday, 5 a.m.
And if you would please consider giving us a 5-star review on your streaming service, it really does help. And that allows us to tell everyone out there, Dan, to stay
Insured.
and wade
Through the high water.
and keep your head,
Above water.
I was going to say out of the hail, and have
A great day.